Hello there. In this video I'm going to show you how you can make this 3D printable disc with a cat face image on it, and I'm going to show you how you can use Inkscape and Fluid Designer for 3D printing to create this object. I have uploaded it to Shapeways and it is printable in plastic and silver and gold and sandstone. Let me show you how we can actually make it. So if you go to Inkscape first of all, which you can download from the internet, what we need to do in Inkscape is just go to File and Import Clip Art, and I'm just going to search for cat clip art images. So if I click on search there, now I have tried these two images and they work fine, but I'm actually going to use a slightly different one. I'm going to use this grooming line cat art. So if I import that and then just close that window down, and I'll just change my zoom a little bit. So this is the image I'm going to use, and all I need to do now is to save this. So if we just go to File and Save, and I like to save to the desktop, and I'll just use the default name that comes up with his drawing. So I just save that file to the desktop. As you can see, I already had the same one there before, but that's all right. So this is just being saved to the desktop. That's all I need to do in Inkscape. And so I can close Inkscape down now. And if I start up Fluid Designer for 3D printing, if I just pull this panel back first of all, I want to import that Inkscape file. So I go to File and Import, and it's a scalable vector graphic file that I want. So if I just go to the desktop, it's the file drawing, so I just import that. Now at the moment you can't actually see anything on the screen, but if we look in the outliner panel here, you'll see we've got a lot of curve objects, and whenever you import from Inkscape, the objects are always pretty small. So if you just go to View and Zoom to Selected, you'll see that there is the cat image, and it's actually made up of a whole series of curves. So what we want to do is to join these all together. So if I hold down the Shift key on the keyboard and select all of these curves in the outliner panel here, or I could do it in the main workspace here, what I want to do now is to join them all together, and as we do that we end up with just one object over here called curve. Now the center of gravity of this object at the moment is here at the cursor, so what I would advise you to do is to go to Tools, Object Tools, and set the origin of this object to the geometry. So you'll see that the cursor, the center of gravity of this object, jumps to the center of the cat. And what I want to do now is to snap this back to the cursor. In other words, it will snap it back to my center point here. So that's just a good habit to get into when using Fluid Designer. Now you can see again, as I scroll back, my object is really tiny. And if I open up the properties panel here, you can see we've got the name curve, so I'm just going to rename that as cat, because that's what our object is. And we can see here what the size of it is, 0.457 millimeters. Now if I just switch on screencast keys, you can see any key presses I make in Fluid Designer down here. I want to scale this up now, so if I point the mouse at the center of the screen, and if I press the S key on the keyboard for scale, and then if I just pull the mouse away from the screen there, you can see I can resize this, and I want to make it something of the order of about 35 millimeters. That kind of size. Now whenever you're scaling Fluid Designer, whenever you scale a curve, always do Control A and apply the scale, otherwise you will have problems later when you try and 3D print objects. So what have we going to do next? Well, if we click on show the curve data information, you'll see at the moment that this is a 2D object, and what I want to do is to change it to a 3D, and as I do that you'll see that the black shading there disappears. Now if I press the tab key on the keyboard and go into edit mode, you see something weird happens. And we get all these blue lines. Now what we need to do here is we need to highlight all of the different control points that make up these curves, And we can do that by pressing the A key on the keyboard until you get all the control points highlighted. So A on the keyboard until you get all the control points highlighted. And you can see over here we've got some values of mean weight and mean radius. We need to change these back to 1. So I'll press 1 there and 1 for the mean radius. And you can see those blue lines disappear. Now you must do this. You must reset these values. So we can now come back out of edit mode, and so we've got a curve here, and so what I want to do is to wrap some cross section around this curve to give it some depth, to give it some thickness, and so I need some objects to do that. Now on my system, under 3D Templates Masters, there are some cross sections that I can just import into this document. So I'm going to append from 3D Templates Masters some rectangular cross sections. So if I go to File and Append, and I need to get onto my group system, and so if I go to the Groups folder under Fluid Designer for 3D Printing, I need to go to 3D Templates Masters, rectangular cross sections, and I want to go to objects. Now all these are various cross sections, and if I just press A on the keyboard, that will highlight all of them, and I'm just holding the shift key down now and deselecting that default object. I don't want to import that, I just want to import all the cross sections. So if I just append those from the library, they will all appear in my outliner panel here. So I've imported all those into my workspace, and so now I've got my cat. What I can do is I can apply a thickness to this. So if I apply a thickness of 1 by 1, now you can see that there's a colour of black there. Now that's coming from Inkscape again, and what it is a material property. Now I want to remove that. I'm not interested in materials from the point of view of 3D printing. So if I just go to materials there and just remove that from the material slot, that will just take out the black there. So we've just left with this cat's face now. So we could change the thickness of this because we've got this as a curve now. So we could make it 2 millimeters thick, 3 millimeters thick, 4 millimeters thick. We can do whatever we want really. So I'm going to let's say I'm going to make it 2 millimeters thick. So it's 2 millimeters deep and 1 millimeter across there. So there's my basic cat face. So if I now go to View and Top View, what I want to do is to put a disc around this, and I'm going to do that by adding a mesh, and I'm going to use a cylinder. And if we just open up the toolbox here, we'll see that the radius of the cylinder at the moment is 1 millimeter, so I can increase that until it just fits on the outside of my cat. Now if we zoom in on this, you can see that there are some faces here, and that's controlled by these vertices. If I remove this, change this value and make it quite low, you can see I can change the shape of my disc. So I could, for example, have it as a 10-sided or an 8-sided disc, whichever you want. Or if you increase this value really high, if you take it up to say 360, you'll get a much smoother surface on the edge here, and that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to set that at 360. So I can now close that panel down. And as you can see at the moment, the cat's hidden, but if I just switch from material mode to wireframe mode, you can see where the cat object is. And if I just change my view now to look at it from the front, so I've got my cylinder there. Cylinder is highlighted at the moment. If I just highlight the cat image and just zoom in, what I can do is I can pull that up a little bit, and so that my cat is fitting through the surface of my material underneath, of the disc that's underneath it. Now my cat at the moment is 1 by 1, so if we just view it from the front again, and just go back to wireframe, what we've got really is 0.5 millimeter sticking out at the top and 0.5 millimeter sticking inside. So perhaps I'll just change that to 1/2. So we've now got 1 millimeter of cat sticking through the disc and 1 millimeter below, and I think I'm actually going to leave it like that. Alright, so I can switch back to material mode now. So what I want to do is to join these two objects together now. Now at the moment the cat is a curve. The cylinder, however, is a mesh. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight the cat and go to Tools, Object, Tools, and convert the cat to a mesh. And then if I just highlight the cylinder and hold down the Shift key and highlight the cat, if I go to Tools, Object, Tools, and join the two together into one object, so my cat face and my cylinder are now one object. And really all I need to do now is to save this, to export this as either an OBJ or an STL file, and I tend to use OBJ, and I'm just going to export it to the desktop, and I'll call it cat. So we export that object to the desktop, and then all we need to do is to take that object into Netfab Basic and just run the repair procedure there. So we'll just let that save. Okay, so the file is now saved. So if I just go to Netfab Basic and just go to Project and Open, and go to the desktop and open the cat. Just take a few seconds while that actually loads. Now there will be some errors with this. Fluid Designer for 3D printing is based on Blender. It doesn't make an absolutely perfect job of creating watertight meshes, but because we've used curves to create that cat, I'm pretty confident that Netfab is going to be able to fix this. So you can see we get a warning red triangle, not a problem. We hit the repair procedure, and if we just click update, you can see there are some holes and border edge problems. So if we just run automatic repair and execute that, and once that's run through, if we just click update again, you'll see with border edges, orientation have all been fixed. So you apply the repair and remove the old part. So this is all you need to do in Netfab. And you can see the warning red triangle has now disappeared. So it's a case of going to Part, export it, and I'm going to export it as a wavefront object again, and I'm just going to write it on top of cat. And I still might come across some other problems here. Sometimes you do, yeah. Don't worry. Just click optimize, and again just allow Netfab Basic to make the repairs to that, and you can see we've got a green tick now, so we can export that, and so Netfab's taken care of all of that for us. That's what I did, and this is the kind of finished, this is obviously a rendered image, this one, but this is what the object will look like in the end. So good luck. You can do that with any clip art that you can import into Inkscape. Thank you.